Welcome to The Connection Code, a podcast where we explore the relationships that make your life and work just a little bit better.
Hi, I'm Rachel Gilman-Rischel. I run a PR firm called 3PR, focused on healthy food brands, and I am obsessed with making introductions.
And I'm Gina Anderson Cohen. I have been forcing adults to be friends for a long, long time, and I'm working on a social gathering and event space in New Buffalo, Michigan called Petite Acres. So I am just forcing people together all the time. Rachel, I'm really excited for today's guest. And I brought the question and I brought the guest. I feel like I'm making up for all of the time that you bring the guest and the question. So I'm excited to dig in. Are you ready?
I am. And I love the balance of how we divide things. So never feel like you have to feel sheepish about the guest asking. I mean, you're the tech queen of this podcast.
I don't know how we do it without each other. Rachel, my question today is inspired by Class Act Dining, which is a fine dining dinner party started by Shreena, Amin, and Nicolai Mlodinow. Did I get that right?
Let's see if I don't know, right. But you did try really hard.
I really did try hard, and I'll get it right later. Mlodinow. Mlodinow. So I want to know, can you share your favorite experience that you've ever been a part of that was designed to create connection?
Gina, I thought about this and I landed on one that has to do with you.
Oh, say more.
Which I had brought up before, but I was like, what experiences have I been part of that feel like they really care about the person's experience from start to finish and are very sensitive to the fact that new people might be meeting and they make the room feel warm? And I was like, oh, that was Gina and Sarah Spain's retreat at Miraval. You guys hosted, I think, 30 women. And I signed up only knowing the two of you. So everyone else was a stranger, which I wasn't averse to, but you would hope that the host would be really thoughtful about the fact that people are coming from different places. And you guys did it. You connected people before the event ever happened. So there were familiar names and faces. You were the best shepherds of friendship. There was such a good welcome dinner. There were question prompts. There were timers. There were roles. Everything about it was designed to help people feel at ease and feel a sense of belonging that was created at the outset. So the answer to the question is your gathering. How about you?
Oh, shucks. Thanks, Rachel.
It's almost like you're really good at friendship and gathering people and have done it professionally.
That's really nice. I do take pride in that. I am actually going to give a shout out to camp. So I feel like camp is designed to be a microcosm of childhood friendships. You become really close really quickly with these smaller groups of kids in your cabin. When done right, you go to war with the other cabins, color war, if you will. My camp at least had like a point system. So at the end of the week, a cabin would win and a cabin would lose. So you definitely wanted to win. So it was really like this team spirit pulling for the win, which I do think does unite a group of kids, especially a kid like me who's competitive, but at that point was not athletic. So I liked that. And also my camp allowed us to choose one person who we wanted to room with. So you could sign up for camp and then say one person's name that you wanted to room with. So there was a chance that your friends would get split up, but you would at least hopefully be with that one person. People did try to game the system by doing like a chain of friends. That was very sneaky. But yeah, camp. I think camp is very intentionally designed.
I'm with you 100%. I'm a product of camp. I met my husband from overnight camp. My twin daughters go to overnight camp. I'm smiling because we essentially did the daisy chain of requests to try to get all the girls that like each other to stay together because there's like some really good cabin camaraderie. But there's a lot of lessons from camp that I think could be applied to friendship as an adult and actually camp to class act and the conversation we're going to have. I also see some parallels there.
Yeah, maybe they should do a camp dinner. Maybe that's next. Well,
that would be fun.
If we predict the next dinner, I would be obsessed. But let's talk about Shreena and Nicolai. because we do talk a lot on this podcast about how connection doesn't just happen, it is created. And today's guests have quite literally built a business around that idea. I nod to this in the podcast, but I met Shreena Amin more than a decade ago when my husband Justin and I were just dating. And even back then, she was someone who brought people together and was the life of a party. Very thoughtful, intentional. She always made you feel like you belonged in a room, obviously still to this day. And fast forward to today, she's founded and scaled and helmed some tech companies. And now she's the co-founder of Class Act Dining, along with chef Nicolai Mlodinow. Who started his culinary journey cooking in deeply communal spaces and has always seen food as more than what's on the plate. So together they've built something really unique, a 16-seat dining experience that's designed to bring strangers together and break down barriers and create connection through a shared meal. And it feels like such a natural extension of who they both are. So today we're diving into what it looks like to design for connection through food, through space, and through the moments that happen when you gather people around a table. Here we are with Shreena and Nicolai. Shreena and Nicolai, we are so happy that you are with us today on the Connection Code.
Hi.
Awesome to be here.
Shreena, you and I met more than a decade ago. We always like to provide a little context for how our guests got here. And I'm being generous to both of us with like a little more than a decade ago. I remember a distinct like late 20s, early 30s kind of feeling of shoving friends into an elevator and going to the underground as an early introduction. But since we've spent a lot of time together, traveled together, and I know you to be a very excellent host and friend. And Nicolai, you came into my life via a few friends, but distinctly via Shreena. So tell us how the two of you met and how it led to Class Act Dining.
I love this story. So we were doing Class Act Dining, like the pop-up series, and I was just doing it in my apartment. I'll let Shreena tell her side because it's also very funny about the Venmos and all the things. But from my side, Shreena came in, was an awesome guest, very knowledgeable about food and restaurants, and she kept coming back. And she always had like advice and like cool things for me to think about, both from a food perspective, but also from a business perspective. And one day I just asked, like, would you be an advisor on this? And she's like, sure. And then I remember, like, I got a lot more advice than I thought I was going to get, which was good. But at one point she, like, took the initiative and the proactive thought to be like, hey, welcome conference is coming in. Like this guy, Will Guidera, who, you know, is very much so a large part of why 11 Madison Park is the restaurant it is today, does this conference for hospitality. And do you want to go? I got tickets. And I was like, yes, I want to go. And I kind of thought in my head, like, she already got tickets. So I'm going to say now, like, no, like find someone else to go with, which she obviously would have done. But I'm like, that's pretty cool. So we went. And then I just remember it was such a cool conference, and we were chatting about the things that the speakers were talking about. And I was like, this is awesome. And so we distinctly had one of these like typical conference white little foldy paper boxes with like the sandwich in the plastic bag and a bag of chips and like very, it was fine, but a little cliche. And we were like standing kind of leaning against the wall outside of the venue. And I was like, do you just want to partner with me on this? And she just looked at me, and in true Shreena fashion, she was like, I'll think about it. I was just like, she was like, give me, I think she was more elegant with her speech, so I am paraphrasing, but she was like, give me a couple days to think about it. And honestly, like with Shreena's background, her life position, I was like, it was worth a swing, but like she's probably gonna be like, no, or you can't afford me, or any of the things that I would have found completely acceptable for her to say, honestly. And I think she has every right to say. And then we met for like another advisor meeting, and she said yes. And I was like, holy shit, sick. And yeah, away we went. We started planning out first. Well, we can get into all the things we implemented, but we'll just say there's a lot more business rigor and tracking and planning and leading up to asking for investment, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, long story short is the connection happened at a dinner.
Gina, you will appreciate. This was like we're kind of still in the pandemic, like just coming out of it. And I got a text message from a mutual friend of ours, Deuce, saying,
Deuce.
I know this guy who does these dinners out of his apartment. Do you want to go? You just Venmo him this money. And then like the day before the dinner, they'll tell you where the dinner is. And I was like, okay, sure. I trust Deuce. It's like a friend of a friend. And then I Venmoed Nicolai this money. No idea who he was. There was no website or anything. And then like a week or two later, I was like, that dinner is not happening. It was canceled. And like my money got sent back to me. And then a few weeks later, an actual dinner happened, which I did go to. And that was when Nicolai was still a one-man shop running like a 10-person dinner out of his apartment where he was back of house, front of house, cooking, serving, cleaning, clearing. So it ended up being like a 4-hour plus dinner. But I just had dinner with strangers, including our friends Deuce and Christina. Met Nicolai's mom at that dinner, met a bunch of other industry folks, and probably stayed way too long, had late night tacos. And I just, post-pandemic, was like craving real life, real world connection. And I was like, this is it. Like this dinner is it.
This is an incredible story. And it actually dovetails really nicely with my working theory that the best moments in life tend to happen over a meal, and that those special meals are almost a shortcut to connection. So you guys at Class Act host a dinner party twice a night. What have you learned about connection?
A lot. Well, do you want to go first, Shreena, or do you want me to go first?
Either way.
Okay. I think right, I studied psychology specifically with an emphasis in emotion. I've always been interested in how humans behave, specifically from a feeling aspect, which I think is heavily involved in connection. But I think probably the number one thing that has been like surprising to me is like the different versions of connection. Like in my head, I'm generally like a very kind of smiley, like energetic, just like, yeah, let's party type of guy. And so that's how I always view connection in my head. Like that's my heuristic. And it's very interesting when we have like a quiet table and like the team will be like, oh, it's a table of introverts. And I'll be like, but is it? Because they're all talking to each other, but it's just very calm and subtle. And like two-top, it's talking to two-top next to each other. And it's like, they're not screaming across the table. So I think one really cool thing that I've learned about connection is that it comes in all different like shapes and sizes and forms. And it's not always like rah, here's a party, let's drink some champagne. Sometimes it is just like a very calm, quiet conversation where you still like, we'll see them stay at the bar afterwards for like 2 hours, still having cocktails and talking, even though at the beginning of the dinner, we all thought they were introverts.
I would say that I haven't learned that much new about connection from dinners, but it's kind of reaffirmed theories that I've had. Going back to the introvert extrovert thing, I have lots of friends who are introverts who just tell me they don't want to meet new people, or they have enough people in their life, or they're not interested in going to a dinner to meet new people. And there's tons of research that actually shows that people, even especially people who are introverts, benefit from meeting new people and having random, unstructured interaction and conversation. I went to Booth, and there's a professor there, Nick Epley, who's done a bunch of work on this. I'm sure you guys have heard of the studies he did on the train, like on the Metro in Chicago, where he basically asks people, like, we will pay you to talk to like the stranger that you sit next to, and people think it's going to make them feel worse, and it actually makes them feel better. And there's like scientific research behind this, but I feel like that theory has just been proven throughout our dinner. So there's one dinner that I remember, my uncle, who's my dad's best friend. He's like in his late 70s. He's going to be turning 80 soon. He had to come to dinner at the restaurant, and he reads like everything that we post, share like every email. He's like scoured our website, like reads the fine print. And he came into dinner, and he was nervous. He doesn't hear well. And he was like nervous about sitting down at a communal table. So, his daughter came, we were going to surround him with people. And And midway through dinner, he just turns to me and he was like, I was really skeptical of like people meeting and talking to each other. And he's like, but it's working. It's like, it's happening right now. And so he had like this in real life observation that, that connection was working. And I've experienced that myself. There's multiple people who've given me their phone number after leaving a class act dinner. And they're not people I knew. They didn't always know that I was connected with the restaurant, but it's just like a genuine relationship or connection sparked. And so it's just like, it's real. It can work. And I tell my people or my friends who are apprehensive about a communal dinner and meeting new people to just give it a try and be open to what they'll find.
I love it. I'm a believer, and it's so interesting that you mentioned the skepticism, because I do think when you talk about this restaurant concept, the first instinct that people who haven't been there have is, oh, strangers. And it's not just dinner. It's that sort of first couple of bites in that kind of cocktail hour setting. Then it's the 16-person communal table. And then it's moving on to Nightcap, your speakeasy style bar at the back of the restaurant. So I'm curious, as you were going from idea to that moment at the conference to execution, what made you sure, or at least sure enough, that people wanted this?
I wasn't sure. I think like all of entrepreneurship is, making a bet, taking a risk. And it was more that like, I think, I won't speak for Nicolai, but we thought that this should exist in the world, then we were sure it was going to work. And every night it's a new experiment, like as to whether it's going to work or not. And every night it's a different dynamic based on who shows up that day. So maybe Nicolai was more sure than I was.
One thing that gave me a little bit of confidence is Shreena obviously has a lot of startup background under her belt, and I have had some. Like, I was involved in one startup and then started another company before I even did the pop-up itself. And she did something really cool, which is like, you have an MVP, right? Like, you have like the minimum viable product is the pop-up. And I never thought of it that way, because the pop-up was my life. Like, lived in my apartment, tried to make it look like a restaurant, would move my only couch literally on top of my bed when the dinners were happening, and like have to sleep under it, over it, whatever. Like, I was too exhausted to move it after. So I was so entrenched in it. She was like, no, that's your MVP. And so that gave me some confidence that people wanted it, because we at least showed some demand. But that's not like I wouldn't say I was fully confident, and it's not really the reason I did it at all. Like, I'm just like happily aggressive in my passion for wanting people to connect, is what I like to say, because I always take a positive approach to it, but I am like very determined and like very aggro about the fact that like we will bring people together or I will die trying. Like, that is where we're at, And so the answer is I didn't know, but I knew like, well, you got to commit your life to something, and this seems like a pretty good cause.
I would understand, like, you might want to dig into that a little bit with Nicolai, because we do all the like vision and mission stuff and talk about how we're here to do this to create connection and belonging. But sometimes Nicolai will open up and talk about how like personal that is to him and like what drives him to actually do that. And I think like that's the heart of like what we are all craving. But I think it comes from something that like he was craving in the world, and that's why he's so committed to trying to create it in the world.
Oh, you don't have to ask me twice. Nicolai, let's go deep. What happened?
Oh my gosh.
Why is connection so paramount to you?
Shreena just wants me to cry on camera. That's all it is.
We usually do cry.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so if we're going all the way back, growing up was tough. I had a wonderful family that was an amazing support system, and on some days was probably the reason I got through. But like, I had no friends growing up. Like, I was the kid who would get like jumped after school. By the time I got to high school, I had already been in like 200 fights. not because I was like, that's a guesstimate, but like genuinely like at least one every day, every single school day after school, like at least one. And not because I'm like picking fights. I'll just be going to my locker and like get jumped. I'll be going like someone wouldn't have liked something I said in class one day, and they just like shove me in the hallway and be like, "We're fighting now." And like, you know, I'm loud. I'm a little sarcastic. Like, I'm not saying it was fully not my fault, but also like, I was just kids found me annoying. That's fine. But like little to no friends basically. Until I got really good at basketball and had a growth spurt. And then of course, go to public school, get recruited to private school, boarding school, go to a state championship for basketball, and then everybody wants to be my friend. But it taught me a very interesting dynamic, one of like who are actually like your day one homies. Like my family was always there for me. I have a fucking fantastic family. Oh, can I cuss on this?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, like I have a fucking fantastic family. And so like I always like the people who are closest to me, I call family. Like they're not my friend, they're my family, because like that is how I learned what that connection is called. It's not like a blood thing. And then also just like understanding like success does bring friends. It's a different type of friendship, right? And it feels good. Like having connections feels good when you live so long of your life, especially like the first part where you're learning how to live life, right? Like as a middle schooler, you're still bopping around, learning how to run, not looking like a baby giraffe, especially when you're having a growth spurt to go to 6'5", like, so you're learning how to do that, but you're also learning like how to operate in the world socially. Like I would have to learn, I'm walking down a street now and I'm still sizing everyone up, because in middle school, I'd walk down the school hallways and be like, who has their fist clenched, to know like, where's the punch coming from? So it's like, in the same way, that's how you learn to operate socially. And like, if I'm being honest, having friends is fucking awesome. Like the connection feels great. It brings a sense of like joy and happiness and like euphoria to me. And I think like it's cool because I like kind of learned the dynamic later. I learned what it meant to not have it, or kind of have the opposite of it, just have like all enemies. And so it kind of made me appreciate connection and friendship that much more.
Thank you for. Do you mind if I jump in for 2 seconds, Shreena?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. You said you were to cry. I'm crying. Thank you for sharing that. There's so much there. First of all, I'm very happy that you have this incredible core family and that you have the true friends that have known you all along, plus the addition of the friends that came in as life changed. I feel so terrible that you had to experience all that physical vulnerability, because it's just a terrifying thing to hear. I mean, as a parent of middle school girls, like it just makes me ache to think you went through that. I also think what's so important about you sharing this is that when we met, I am guilty of a preconceived notion. I'm like, here is this very tall, very confident, very attractive, very skilled person who's running this very complex kitchen. You exuded a level of confidence and certainty that would never, ever have clued me in that you had a hard adolescence, right? Like you've clearly done your work to operate in the world in a different way. But I think it's so powerful when people look like they have it all and they reveal that there's a lot of wounds and pain underneath that, because I think it's healthy for people to understand that we contain multitudes and really hard things can actually play a formative role in who we become later. But I just thank you for sharing that. I really do appreciate it.
That plays into one of my favorite quotes is, people will never know how much violence it took to be this gentle. Yeah.
If that's not tattooed on you already. Well, Shreena, I mean, like Nicolai shared his why. Would you like to chime in with sort of like what ties you so deeply to the restaurant and your own why for connection?
I should have seen this question coming, so yet I'm
you teed us up.
Like my why is like that's just the world I grew up in. It was about eating, and like eating together is what my like entire childhood was anchored in. So it does go back to the beginning there for me too, and also goes back to like a very loving family that anchored every social interaction around what are we going to eat today and where are we going to eat it, whether that's in the home, like whether that's dad grilling something in the backyard, whether we're traveling to some like obscure amazing country. Like we literally traveled the globe growing up. We went to Egypt and all over Europe and just like wherever we wanted to go, like every summer we would take like one extravagant trip. But it was all about where are we going to eat that day. And that didn't mean like always a fancy restaurant. It meant like kebabs on the side of the street. But my dad was like committed to a mission of like where and how are we going to find the best food. And I guess I'm answering my question as I'm talking out loud, but I think that goes back to him, to like his childhood and his youth. He grew up in India, in a big city, but like his entire like he was like the ringleader of his friends and family. And it was like anchored around food. There was one restaurant in town that he like had a running tab at, that he would like invite all of his friends to, and like dinner would be covered, and that's where they would meet and that's where they would hang out. And I learned like much later, like after he passed away, that he had that running tab there, but he was also working there on the side, like in the back of the restaurant to like cover the tab. But that's how important it was for him to like kind of be the ringleader and bring people together around food. And so it goes back to that's like, it's just who I am. And that's what I want to exist in the world and other people to experience. When I've been happiest in my life, it's when you're sitting around a table, breaking bread, eating food. Like when I think back to my college friends, I literally got off the meal plan in college because I hated eating at the cafeteria, and convinced a handful of other friends to do that too. And then literally all of our days became structured around where are we going to go eat that afternoon and that evening. And those people are my best friends in the world. So like Gina knows all of them. But like that friendship started around food. And so like every layer of life, you can kind of go back to it's eating together, that like it's where you get to know other people.
Well, one thing I really loved, I'm still kind of toggling between this idea of how critical connection is and then food memory and this idea of bonding through shared meals. I think it helps me see Class Act through a lens of so much more depth and feeling. So I do appreciate that. I got to come in for Gina's birthday. We had this really special dinner for her 40th. And one of the things I took away was the level of storytelling, that there was so much creativity and such a story arc of the beginning of the meal to the end. And I was curious to learn more about the inspiration behind the story element of dining at Class Act.
Every menu, we always have a new through line, right? And every through line is always about connection in some way, but kind of like we talked about at the beginning, like different versions of connection. So to start, the first menu we did was like growing up, because everyone grew up, and it had to be based kind of around the foods I ate growing up. If we redid that menu, I would probably want the other chefs or the team members to be like, what did you eat growing up? And we could do everyone and connect that way. And then it was evolution, right? And the whole point of evolution was we're all connected because we're humans. Like we all came from the same, ancestors, whatever, Homo erectus, Neanderthal, like whatever it may be. And then this one being banquet, right? Like across the world, everybody has different ways of coming together, celebrating over big feasts. And the next menu is one, literally signifying if we focus on one ingredient and the diversity of different characteristics it has and emphasizing those different pieces to make the whole greater, is the same as in society. You have all these different pieces being people. And if you focus on like what makes them great, then the whole society becomes better. And that's the story of connection. And so the reason there's the story arc, and some dishes get more of a story, some dishes get less of a story, because some dishes, it's a bit more of an abstract connection to the food and the story of connection. And some dishes I put in front of you, you immediately go, got it. I understand why this represents the story of connection. But everything always goes back to that one value of connection, of like, that's why there are stories. That's why the menus are structured. That's why the dishes are made. That's why the table is communal. That's why we intentionally put the chairs so close to each other. So like you can't not talk to the person next to you. You almost feel uncomfortable if you don't, because you're like, well, I'm right next to him. It would be rude not to talk to him. That's why there's the cocktail hour. That's why there's the nightcap, right? Like it's all about people connecting.
I think you asking that question also kind of revealed for me. So I think that's accepted in modern fine dining that dining is multisensory, right? And you think about your basic five senses, right? It's like sight and smell, obviously taste. You think about texture and touch and feel. We think about the music in the space and auditory. But I feel like the sixth sense is really emotion, and that comes through storytelling. And so like that's like almost just like you think about those other five senses, like a facet, like a lever that you have to pull against emotion. And I think it's also like part of the art form. Like some people might say it's a little cheesy, but like it's part of like it gives us creativity to be like artistically, like, you know, we think about what is the storyline and story arc here, and like that helps people remember us or like take that back to something personal in their life. So like the first menu was growing up. Nicolai shared a ton of stories about his life growing up in Southern California. But when he would share the story of, you know, his mom making quesadillas for him in mass, everyone has some version of like, what did my mom make me when I got home from school, or like, you know, every aspect of that. And so it's like a way to tie back together and to like kind of pull at that memory thread again.
Yeah, I think I haven't had the banquet menu yet, and I want you to reveal to me a little bit about that, even though I am going to come in and eat it, I promise. But I love the theme of it. It's inspired by rituals of connection that honor life's milestones. You can't tell that I went on your website to check that out, can you? But can you tell us about the gatherings that inspired the current menu?
Yeah, we really liked looking through a lens of both time and cultures. So time, let's start with that because it maybe sounds the most abstract. We found at least two commonalities across all cultures and times, and like how they celebrated around feasts or banquets, which was super cool because that is like we're not even pulling all these cultures together and bringing them together. Like they're already together because they all have a version of this, and now what do we want to do with it? And one is a salad and one is just like a big hunk of meat, right? Like pretty much every celebratory feast you read about, no matter what country, king, emperor, just family gathering, like, you know, it didn't matter. And so that's really cool. And so we have a salad course we call a winter salad that is like got foams and is frozen in liquid nitrogen. And like we do our whole like modernist cuisine, you know, cooking sciencey thing to it. And then you have one that's just, you know, like a refined version of shawarma. Because that's like, I lived in the Middle East, near and dear to my heart. It's like a Wagyu shawarma. It comes with like a parsley olive oil powder as an homage to like the American steakhouse, the big old bushel of parsley on the plate. And then we have like a mint gel representing like a mint jelly. We have a bechamel. So we're still bringing, you know, let's say classic American food. We're bringing in Middle Eastern food. We're bringing in French food. So there's still that global connection in the cultures. But those two are really cool because across all times you see like this type of salad and just a hunk of meat being celebrated over. And then we have cool things like Indian cuisine. They have this beautiful curry like Navratan Korma, which means 9 jewels. And we add a 10th jewel, which is the protein with the dish, which is like a squab. But the 9 jewels represent a different ingredient in the curry, but it also represents a different planet. Shout out to Pluto. I always say that. I still think you're a planet. So it's like a sense of universal alignment, you know, with the 9 planets aligning for you. And those 9 planets aligning for you and wishing like a universal alignment for someone. And that's how you're celebrating is really cool, you know? And then we have a couple dishes from Chinese cuisine with like a crab dish representing success and prosperity. We wish you. We, of course, have an ice cream dish representing kind of childhood and just like that celebratory, I won a big game or whatever it may be. We're going to go get a sundae. So that's the general scope and a few dishes on the banquet menu.
And it also extends to the bar menu, and the bar has taken inspiration from Sony Cool Banquets as well. The most popular drink on the menu right now is called kulfi, and it's inspired by Indian weddings and the desserts that are served at Indian weddings, which are, you know, like the ultimate sensory overload banquet. There's a drink called Rodeo Cook-Off, and it's inspired by the rodeo, specifically in Houston, and the big like barbecue and like like on the fire on the pit cooking that they have that like accompanies the rodeo. There's a drink inspired by a feast thrown by a Roman emperor. So it's like it's all over the place, but then there's again all these threads of like I've been to a million Indian weddings and I see that in the like literally in the cocktail.
I love this curiosity. Like you guys really take a deep dive into philosophy and the world. And it's like this marriage of intellectual voyeurism and technical expertise. And I feel like I can't think of somebody else who's quite doing this. Maybe if you look at Next and Alinea, but I commend you. I want to talk about hospitality though, especially in Nicolai, since you were talking about Will Gadara and the Welcome Conference. I love hospitality. And I think that you can only provide great hospitality if it exists in the culture that's providing it. So I'm curious what you guys do for your team to foster a really strong spirit of connection.
Would you like to go first, Shreena? Or would you like me to go first? I'm like, oh man, I got a lot of answers for that one. But
I think you're going to be closer to this one because there's a lot we try to do like culturally, but Nicolai's like at the restaurant every day, living and breathing it with the team. So I think he'll be able to speak to this one better than me.
I think one, just getting people first start is getting people you want to work with, because that will just create like a fun atmosphere while you're working, whether what you're doing is hard, whether the hours are long, both is usually the answer, but at least you're having fun. And if everyone's happy, even if they're exhausted, they're still like happy because they're with each other. So that's step one. Step two is everyone has their own leadership style and how they want to influence culture. For me, I think my team can see that generally outside when we go out for drinks or food, or even in the restaurant when it's not so like rubber meets the road time, I'm just like a happy goofball who will randomly go meow in the middle of prepping just so my sous chef can go meow back to me, you know? And it's like, so having that sense, but also they see like when service starts, they're like, he's like a general, like sometimes maybe a little too serious and aggressive, but he's like very, very committed to this. And I think, again, it gets back to that like happy aggression where they're like, we're all happy here. We love what we do. We're connecting people. But also, I always say, people say it takes a village, and I respectfully disagree with that. It takes an army. Like I view, and I think all of the people I work with view themselves as like, in a weird way, like soldiers for happiness, like soldiers for connection. Like we are marching in, and to Shreena's point, right, there are a lot of people like no new friends, anti-social social club. Like they think it's cool to do that. And we're like, we're coming in as like the special forces, and we're going to drag your ass into being happy and connected. So help me God, you know? And I think that the team sees that with me. They see that with Shreena. We're all hanging out and we're good friends. So we're like happy as friends, but also get that serious aspect of like, this is supposed to be refined and elegant and fine dining. And we are supposed to be working as hard as possible. And that's not always like rah aggression. Sometimes it's like using that emotion to put a giant smile on your face, right? But we are marching in and making these people happy. And like, that is what we're doing. And that's the culture we try and foster.
Nicolai talking, of course, got my wheels spinning. I think like, yeah. I think like the hospitality, like to start is just taking care of your people. And so we start with trying to take care of our people. And that, you know, we offer PTO, we offer healthcare. Like in other industries, those things are not revolutionary, but in like fine dining and restaurants, like that's not the standard. So like out of the gate, offering those things was important to us. For every founding member on the team, we offered them equity as well. That comes from like my startup experience, but like we want everyone to feel like they are owner, and to, you know, when we win down the road, for them to be like beneficiaries of that. So taking care of people, I would say, is one. And then two, I think like hospitality is reflected in everything. It's in the culture, it's in the calendar you set, it's in the, you know, the way you interact with each other. So, you know, we call Nicolai's adamant that we call family meal, and that the team sits down and eats together every day. And, you know, of course, there's exceptions where someone's running to catch some, like get something done, or like there's a one-off distraction. But there is, you know, a time each day where they sit down and eat together, and they call it family meal. And the team calls each other family. And some people like view that as like, that's, you know, I'm not your family, I'm your coworker. And there's a distinction. But in our world, like we want our team to feel like family, and that's expressed in how we behave with them and in the words we use as well.
Mm-hmm. And I think for the people who are uncomfortable calling it family, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just not the place to work for you. Like that's okay. There are plenty of places that don't do that you would love working at, but like it gets back to, right, Shreena and I worked very hard on hiring people where we're like, they're about this cause, they're about this mission and vision.
Well, I think if you win a certain award, I do think there are nuggets within this question and answer that you could use as an acceptance speech. I'm just saying. All right. Last question before we jump into our connection conversation. Rachel, are you okay with that, or do you want one more?
I'm ready.
Okay. What is a moment that you've witnessed at the table that really made you think this is why we did this?
Oh, I've got such a good one, but we might have to bleep something out. Every culture is different, and in different cultures, words have varying degrees of sharpness, we'll say. Mm-hmm. And in the South African culture, along with the British culture, there's a word that starts with AC that is much more casual than in the United States culture. And we have
like a four-letter word?
Like, you know what? I'll see you next Tuesday for coffee. We'll just, okay. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Just checking.
Yeah. So it was interesting because this guy was like the life of the party, just the nicest, happiest dude, just running around, he literally, as soon as we sat down, so you have like 30, 45 minutes in that front room, and then we sat at the table, we sit at the table, he's like, I love it here. He stands up, he's like, Chris, Cindy, Rachel, Bianca, and he goes through the whole table, not people he came with, all their names. He's like, I'm so happy I met you. And it was like absurd. I was like, we need to give this guy a job. Like, how did he memorize the name? I'm like, we work so hard to memorize their names, and we have a list ahead of time, you know? And it was really cool, but also very South African, thick accent, all of that. And so naturally, like halfway through the dinner, he's just talking. He's talking about his friends and how they're being annoying. And he just like, you know, he goes for it like 3 or 4 times. And there are 2 other lovely women on the other side of the table who are like super well put together, elegant, like 30. It seemed like they were maybe like 30. And you could tell, like, they're like, whoa. And they're like, why are you using that word? Like, why not use a different word? And he looks at them, and you could see the cultures collide, but not necessarily in like an aggressive way. He was like, oh, well, it's just completely different where I'm from, which I thought was an amazing and almost like genius tactical response, because he wasn't like, oh, your culture is just like overboard with it, which he later did say, but only after a lot of explanation, you know? But I thought, like, as opposed to being like, oh, well, because I have the right to, as opposed to like building up the arsenal and getting ready for war, like a verbal defensive war, he was like, well, where I'm from, it just means something different, you know? And they were like, yeah, but where we're from, it's like not a great word to say. And he's like, yeah, I get that. And then he went, but the Americans take it too serious. Like, we're having a good time. I'm drunk. You're tipsy. Like, and he goes into his whole like party man speech. And like by the end of the meal, like they were like genuine friends. He was still using the word. They were laughing their ass off every time he used the word. And I was like, did we just solve world peace at this table? I'm looking at the cameras. I'm like, can we clip that? Like this is insane, you know? And so like that was one of the most beautiful moments I had seen at the table yet. Cause I was like, I'm sitting there. I think I'm pretty good socially at this point in my life. And I'm sitting there like, no fucking way I could have navigated that conversation. I was like,
Nicolai,
that
this is lore.
savant.
This is like gonna be in your restaurant lore.
Yeah.
The night of the C word and what
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah. I was like, God bless that man, because I'm like, send him to the Middle East. Let's figure some shit out. Like he was so talented at defusing the situation. I was like, whoa.
I was not expecting that at any point.
No.
No sentence was predicted. What about you, Shreena?
I can't top that. So, I'm just excited. I get happy when I learn that people met at dinner and genuinely made new friends. And I get happy when that happens to me personally. It's in our Google reviews. Like, people have left reviews and said, oh, we loved so-and-so that we met so much at dinner that we actually then went to another bar afterwards with them and continued the evening. We got an email from someone who came in last Friday that said that her and her husband loved the couple next to them so much that they exchanged phone numbers. And so, like, the little stories where you just see it happening, whether I've experienced it firsthand or personally, or it comes through us some other secondhand way. That's when it's like, oh, it's working. And I think the next step is, how do we just get more of that? And then how do we, like, I don't know, is there a way that we can help, like, nurture that and turn it into something more? Because, there are so many times where I've gotten someone's phone number or something for dinner, but then I don't ever follow up and, like, hang out with them. And it's like, how can I then actually, like, turn that into a real connection that, yields something a little bit more lasting?
If only
Not
Gina
that the
was really
momentary
good
thing
at
is
giving
not.
advice about friendship.
We just need Gina at the table every night. Second job.
I would love that. I would drive in for it. My meals are set. Well, Rachel, what do you think? Should we have a connection conversation?
Let's dive in.
Do you want to ask the first question?
Yeah. So, Shreena, Nicolai. Shreena, I'll start with you. Who is the last connection that you made?
Okay, so when I was getting ready for this question, I was just, like, thinking really honestly. I just came back from Las Vegas 2 weeks ago. I go to Las Vegas every year for March Madness because I'm a big basketball fan, and I go with, honestly, a group of people that would all be a great stories for how am I connected with these people, because it's like the most random hodgepodge of people from all over the country that meet once a year to watch basketball in Las Vegas. But I was like, I made like a dozen connections that weekend, because one of the best and most unorthodox places to make a connection is at the blackjack table or at the sports book at a casino. And when you're sitting at a blackjack table, you could be there for hours. You are sitting directly next to a stranger that you are in as close, if not closer proximity to than when you come to dinner at class act. And you meet people from all walks of life, from all parts of the world. And I have made friends with so many people at the blackjack table. One person that I met 2 weeks ago was one of our dealers. I was out by the pool. He was originally from Wisconsin and revealed very early to me that he was a Packers fan. And for me, that's usually like a no-go. Like, we are not going to be friends. But we like hit it off, and we talked about football, and like genuinely, like, I kept going back to his table through the course of the few days that I was there. And I was like, this is the first Packers fan I've ever become like genuine friends with. And it's just literally you're spending time like at a oftentimes mindless activity. But you get to learn. Like, I met a group of guys from Texas. I met an old couple from South Carolina that doesn't really play by the rules. But I learned, like, you hear like different life stories, and then they kind of become your friends. I've been at like casinos before. Like, we played blackjack once with all of like Kirk Herbstreit and his friends from growing up, and they didn't know that we knew who they were, but we figured out who they were. And it was just like his high school friends from growing up. And through the course of the weekend, you see them around the casino, you say hi, you catch up, and you bond over those few hours you had at whatever that table, and either your misery from losing money or like the joy and ecstasy of like the dealer busting.
All right, gambling for friendship. Yes.
I can say firsthand, blackjack table with Shreena is a hoot. It is amazing. You will also be there for 6 hours and not realize it. And then you check the phone, you'll be like, it's 5 a.m. You're like, that's weird. You'll think your phone clock is wrong. And also, I will say blackjack, you all have like a common goal, which is like beat the dealer. So that helps
Yeah.
bond people too, you know? It's like beat the dealer. Yeah. I miss that. We need to go back to the casino, Shreena.
One of my dream connection questions, this is one like future tip for you guys, is who is your dream blackjack table? Like if you could play blackjack with 4 or 5 other people, who would be on your dream wish list? I asked this to a friend once and she was like, oh my God, I've never thought about it. And like 2 weeks later, she emailed me back and she was like, I've been thinking really hard about this question and I have finalized my list.
That's a distinctly Shreena question.
That's hysterical. I just watched the Friends episode where Ross figures out his hall pass list and he laminates it. And it took him like a long time to figure out the 5 women he could sleep with if Rachel would let him. So to each their own. Yeah. Wait, Nicolai, who's your most recent connection?
My most recent connection's got to be my guy Flo at the bar. I mean, that was literally like less than 12 hours ago. No, it was a little more than 12 hours ago at this point, but like 13 hours ago. Cool guy, just moved here from Wisconsin. He was in Madison. He was born in Madison, kind of raised there, and then was living in Wisconsin. And he was at the bar for like hours. Like we had a 6 o'clock seating. He was basically there from like 6 all the way through when that seating sat at the bar and then left. And he was still there. And it was cool just getting to know him. And he's like, yeah, I got this promotion at work. They said I could live wherever I wanted. And I kind of always lived in Wisconsin. I wanted to go try Chicago as a big city. And the whole thing was actually sparked over a beverage because, like, I would see him and he was still sitting there and I'd, like, nod to him or say hi or, like, welcome in. And then he was drinking the Spread Eagle Supper Club, which is a drink based on Wisconsin supper clubs. But specifically, it was based on Wisconsin Old Fashions because my girlfriend has a house in Wisconsin. We went to visit. And I told her, look, we can do whatever you want to do going up here, but I need to go to a supper club and I need to try Wisconsin Old Fashioned because I never had one. And so she takes me to Ishanala. Ishanala? Is that how you pronounce it? Anyway, Ishanala. I think it's like some bigger, more famous supper club. And I have one. And I literally take one sip and I just look at her and I'm like, I don't understand why people hate this. It's just a shitty highball. With all due respect, if you like it, that's fine. But to me, I'm like, I know this classic cocktail. I understand what they're doing. And I go back to work after that weekend and I go to our head bartender, Isaac, and I go, Wisconsin Old Fashioned on the next menu. It's about banquets. It's about supper club. That's how they do it in the Midwest. Like, that's cool. It's a fun time. I love the supper clubs. And he goes, are you kidding me? And I go, no, just hear me out. It's a shitty highball. And I literally can see a light bulb go above his head. And he's like, whoa. He's like, it is. And I was like, I don't have any of the skills to make this happen, but you do. And that's just my idea. And so then he makes it. It's a beautiful drink. He even has like an orange wheel and a lemon wheel and a lime wheel and a maraschino cherry all on the garnish. I'm like, it's very on brand. And puts it on the menu and he's researching. He literally, the reason it's called Spread Eagle Supper Club is because he looked at all the cities in Wisconsin, the names, and chose his favorite name. And it was like they had like basically a March Madness bracket of names until they got to like the one they liked the most. But getting back to Flo, my last connection was with him. And he was a great guy. And we had this whole conversation. He heard that whole story and he was talking about his experiences. And we talked about like the restaurant, the bar, why he moved here, like what he ate growing up, the type of food he likes, and like why he was even looking for a bar that night and all of these things. And he was a dope guy. Shout out to Flo. I hope you come back. With a sick name, by the way. Flo, come on. Easy money. Yeah. And the really cool part was, right, it was all because like we happened to have a drink on the menu that was from his culture. And he liked it, by the way, for the record. He said it was the best Wisconsin Old Fashioned he's ever had. So,
woo, big compliment.
Yeah.
I know, Rachel, we're bumping up against your stop here, right?
Well, here, we can cut this part out. But what if we just do speed round for the next 2 questions?
Yes.
Okay.
And then we'll do. I wouldn't change a thing about the answers you just said, by the way. Those we're obsessed.
Excellent.
We're going to give you. I just want to make sure we
someone
get
on
Rachel
this call long-winded or something? I'm confused. Like, somebody...
Me? Okay, I'm ready. We'll go so fast. For Ben, what is one piece of advice that you would give to your younger self about connecting?
Don't be scared. Like just go for it. So much fear as a kid or like as a young adult or a high schooler or a college grad of like that person's not going to want to talk to me, that person might not like me, that person's going to judge me, like it just get rid of all that. Just go start. You don't know what's going to come of it. Just don't be afraid.
It would be differences aren't a bad thing. They're in fact a beautiful thing. Because a lot of the differences that I've had with people, they lead to intellectually stimulating conversations. They lead to me learning about new thought processes. They lead to me learning about new cultures. They like open up my mind and make like life so much more fun with like the diversity that it brings. That like differences are not a bad thing. They're actually a beautiful thing.
Yes. Okay, our final question. You guys have been amazing. Who would be your dream connection, alive or dead?
Mine would be my grandfather, my dad's dad. I never got to meet him. Like I met my mom's parents, but my dad's dad sounded like a remarkable human being, worked hard. So like the leader of the Polish resistance in Czestochowa when the Nazis took over, like survived the Holocaust, immigrated to the US. Like he's just such an interesting character, had this like crazy story of like family and wealth and then something beyond poverty, and then came to the US and then had my father and raised him to be a PhD theoretical physicist at Caltech with my grandmother, of course, and like would start work at 6 a.m. and come home at 10 p.m. and like just the hardest worker, seemed very just like moral, ethical. It would be sick just to have a dinner with him and be like, how? Like, tell me everything. Yeah. Shout out Simon.
Can't forget to shout out Simon. Shrina, what about you?
Okay. Well, my answer is so on the opposite just end of the spectrum than Nicolai's that I'm like almost even embarrassed to say it. Like
It's okay if it's Beyonce.
Yeah.
no, I mean, like my go-to people that came to the top of my head were like Michael Jordan, that like childhood hero, but I did get to meet him. I was thinking more about like who would I want to like collaborate on something right now? Is not just like a moment of like I'm going to meet this person, but who could we like work together and build something cool together? So like Taylor Swift would be the dream person, but
Obviously.
I mean, yeah, that's we'll keep that in dreamland. And this is a dream person too, but maybe it'll come out of the dream and become reality. Right now would be Caleb Williams. So going back to football. But it's one, I want him to come eat at the restaurant because I feel like he's all about connection and like building closer ties to Chicago. And we could, facilitate that for him. Maybe one day we can even host a dinner for Bears fans and Packers fans to break bread together. But my friend is working on a nail business that's all about like fandom and friendship and community, like a nail art, nail sticker business. And Caleb, as you know, like paints his nail, like is famous for painting his nails. And I would love for him to be involved and for us to, I think fandom is actually one of the ultimate like sources of connection. It's like we could do a whole podcast about that itself. And so I would love to connect with Caleb and explore building that together.
Ooh, I love that. You guys, we could talk to you all day. I wish we had forever. Can you, before we go, can you tell all the people listening where to find you and where to get reservations?
ClassActChicago.com. You can find us on Open Table. You can book both Class Act and our Speakeasy Nightcap, both on Open Table. Reservations, highly, highly, highly recommended. Our new menu one is launching mid-May, and you only have a few more weeks to check out Banquet before we move on to the next act.
Yeah. And the
Gina and Rachel, we'll save your seats, so you let us know when you want to come in.
Thank you.
If you do want to try and walk into the bar, because the restaurant there, it's reservation only, but the bar does have walk-ins, even though make a reservation, but it's 1737 North Damon Avenue. Chicago, Illinois, 60647.
You guys are the best. Thank you so much for joining us. I can't wait to come dine with you again.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Thank you guys. This
See you
was so
soon.
fun.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What a conversation, Gina. Wow. Actually, that I love really deep vulnerability and unexpected conversation detours. And I thought we were going to be, as I'm moving my hands up here, sort of like surface level. Tell us about the business of your restaurant and connection. And when Nicolai shared his childhood and all of the agonies that he experienced, and we got to really go there, I thought, this is incredibly connective, actually. I feel so much closer to him by virtue of him sharing that. And I really saw the beauty of their partnership, that Shreena knew to even prompt that conversation and to say, you know what, gave us a little nudge. You know what I would ask him about? I would ask why this is so meaningful. And she gave us the gift of showing us where to go. And he was so receptive and so open. And I just loved it. How
I
about
know,
you?
me too. Well, she also shared a bit about her dad, who tragically passed away. They did have this wonderful shared experience through food, and she's told the story about going to her first like fine dining experience as a child with her dad and having it like change her life. So it's really lovely to see her sort of continue that family story and that legacy through Class Act too.
I kept thinking that what they're doing is so much about belonging and capturing something that's important to them and sort of blanketing it inside a fine dining experience. But like if you pulled back the layers, like almost a Russian doll, what's nesting in the inside is, I want to feel accepted and I want to feel a sense of belonging and I want to feel like I matter here. And that's what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. They're cheers, like a very fancy cheers.
Yes.
Like honestly, we all need a cheers. But with that, should we do show and tell?
Yes. I think we both have really unexpected sort of trending things that are happening. So tell me yours.
Well, okay. So I wanted to go on theme with stranger dinners. So I came across this company called Time Left. It's sort of one of these emerging companies, but this is all around the world. And it's called Time Left, and you can join a group of strangers for dinner in cities everywhere, including Chicago. But I think it's really interesting because it is popular. It is trending. It's spreading like wildfire and people are interested in it and they're using it when they travel to meet other travelers or other locals and have dinner with them. So it made me kind of think about how a shared meal can be that point where you make vacation friends or where you learn about a city or where you maybe just make that friend who you've been looking for.
Very cool. And it's an app that you sign up on?
Yeah, you can use timeleft.com online. Rachel, you could go to a Time Left dinner like in the next week or so. They just like book restaurant spaces and they tell you, I think the day of. So you sign up, opt in, and then Time Left makes the reservation. It's almost like, do you remember Grouper? The like group dating? Yeah. So Grouper was like a really cool idea, honestly. I think it should come back, but this is Grouper in disguise. Like Grouper, you would meet up with a group of people. The idea was that it was like a mix of men and women, and you could go and have a good time with friends. And ideally, like at least 50% of you would like the other 50%, and the rest of you would have a great time because you're out in a group. And this is sort of similar, but you're going to dinner with strangers.
Oh, well, it's interesting because I had this whole idea of what I was going to talk about. And then I saw this story today about, it's in the New York Post, about an app called either Dion or Dion. It's named after a Greek god. But the idea is that it formalizes, can I buy you a drink? So you can use the app to send somebody anything from a coffee at participating coffee shops to, they said, a $19 Negroni at participating bars. But it takes away maybe the fear of approaching somebody and saying, can I buy you a drink? And you do it through the app and then purchase their drink. Okay, mixed feelings real quick. On one hand, so great that somebody's coming up with an in real life way to connect with somebody, and this is the vehicle. On the other hand, you do have to pay a surcharge. So I'm like, couldn't you just talk to your server and say, see that cute guy over there who's wearing that, that jacket? I want to buy him a drink.
Mhm.
I feel there's something refreshingly retro and old school about just taking the wheel and doing it versus needing to go
Yeah.
through an app and adding all these layers. But apparently there's a 20,000 person wait list for this app,
Oh my
which
God.
means people really want to connect and really need their hand held as they do it.
Is it named after the god Dionysus? The god
I think it is.
wine? Yeah.
Yes.
Um,
Look at you,
that's-
Sheena,
I love Greek mythology.
Greek mythology
man.
expert.
Yeah. Well, that's I feel you on just go talk to them, but I also understand Gen Z is like a technology interface, and we want to give them what they need to talk to each other. I did try to airdrop someone in a car next to me a stat about putting your feet on the windshield. You know, like you ever see people like with their feet up on the windshield? I always just think about that ad on TV where someone's like, I just wanted to be comfortable in the car and now I don't have my foot. So I tried to airdrop someone this stat about injuries with your feet up on the windshield. I think that would be helpful. Can I give you a stat? Can I pitch that? Can I give you a stat? Off topic, Rachel.
I have no words. I so appreciate a good safety moment. I think an unexpected airdrop from somebody in the car next to you. Whew.
I'm just worried about you, is what I
You're
wanted to
connecting
say.
through care. Yes.
Exactly. Well, this has been another episode of The Connection Code, a podcast about friends, connections, work, and everything in between. And this is a production of two friends, Rachel Gilman-Rischel and Gina Anderson-Cohen. Follow us on Instagram, on LinkedIn, send us messages. We love to hear from you. Thank you so much to Shreena and Nicolai for being on the episode today. Send them a little love. They are up for a big award. I feel like it's bad luck to say the name of the award. And thanks to Ben Cleaver for editing this podcast. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.